Oh, thank you, Maggie. My name is Scott and I'm an alcoholic. Hold on, I got something popping up here. Okay. I'm afraid if I hit another button, I'm just going to disappear. My name's Scott and I'm an alcoholic. I'm very grateful to be alive and sober, and I want to thank Maggie for this kind invitation to be here tonight. Yeah, I haven't seen your face since Grand Junction, and it was great coming out there. I knew nothing about the Western Slope, and to know that you guys had peach orchards out there, and it was great. My host was really good to me out there. Anyway, you know, I'm sober, going to be going on 19 years, and I've been working with a sponsor for over 15 years of that or so, and I've been through the steps every year since I met my sponsor, and that's the first time I read that letter when you sent it to me. And the emotional sobriety thing, I've been hearing about it. Oh man, there's a talk on emotional sobriety, but and what it sounds like to me is it's recovery. I recovered from alcohol before I ever met my sponsor. God was very kind to me. The thought of a drink was removed from me, very much so without any effort on my part, other than a very sincere desire to not live the way I was living anymore. Now, even after meeting my sponsors between 3 or 4 years separated from alcohol and starting to get into some real work, I dove right into the deep end of the pool. But the emotional sobriety was a very long, painful road. I mean, Bill got sober in 1935, or when he wrote the book, rather. And he's not writing about emotional sobriety until when? 1958. That is 23 years in. And I mean, the truth about Bill Wilson suffered terribly from alcoholism, sober, like so many of us do. And it really shocks me when I hear that letter being read. And then I think about some of the workshops that actually inspired me to go through the steps early on. In like the late 90s, early 2000s, there were a lot these workshops going on where the narrative was that if you practice this program just the right way and you do all this black belt karate chop stuff, the spiritual ninja exercises, you pray and meditate like an athlete and do multiple inventories with half the neighborhood, and that you would be so spiritually fit, you wouldn't experience selfishness, dishonesty, resentment, or fear. And if you experienced any of these things, it was because you weren't spiritually fit. And I started to find out there was a real conflict going on and I'm thinking, where are the rainbows and unicorns that I thought I was going to get by working this program? And I mean, working it to the best of my human ability. I mean, let's call a spade a spade. Me walking through the doors of Alcoholics Anonymous, character defect was how I did business. It's just who I was, man. And I applied it to every aspect of my life, especially the things that mean the most to me. Even today, I mean, I think it'll always be this way. If my marriage is important to me, which it is, alcoholism is going to want to work its way into my marriage and start poisoning my mind against my wife. If my job, earning money, relationships at the job, if that stuff's important to me, alcoholism wants to work its way into that and start telling me how horrible or I'm being treated, or I should be making more money, or I need to start cutting corners to make more money, whatever. If Alcoholics Anonymous is really important to me, and maybe even my image in Alcoholics Anonymous is really important to me, alcoholism wants to get in there and start running the show in that regard too. And then I'm not going to get onto a meeting like this or getting up to a lectern at a conference. I'm not going to be there to share my actual true experience with you. I'll be up there auditioning for my next invitation to the next conference. I hope I give a good talk, you know. And it's insidious like that. I mean, it does not give up. I keep running into myself, and don't get me wrong, I'm not this bearer of bad news. I'm not a preacher of uplift, but I feel I need to just tell the truth about how difficult it has been to grow spiritually, to have emotional sobriety. I don't have bad days anymore. I don't. I have bad moments, but the practice of my program and the man I've become is that these moments, they immediately spark a reaction, a response in me. And my response is to take a look at how I'm feeling. Like my feelings today can really be the canary in the coal mine for me. And they can tell me I need to take a look at this. And, earlier on in the big book, when we start talking about this notion of getting into the inventory and things like that, it talks about getting down to causes and conditions. And Bill in that letter mentions, if we examine things, we can get down to the root causes. Because it's like, okay, what makes Scott run? Why do I respond this way? Why do I act this way? Why do I blow up every relationship? Or it's really walk out on. That was my MO. I would walk out on relationships. And it didn't matter if we were married. That didn't matter. The vows I took, well, they don't apply now because I'm not feeling it, or she's not acting right, or this or whatever. I could come, if I'm not feeling it, I feel like I need to get out. I need an escape hatch. I walked out. And I don't operate that way today. I had to learn a lot about love. Not the feeling of love, but the action of love. I thought falling in love was love. That feeling you get? Come on, the feeling. And it's like, oh, it's really powerful, and it's meant to be. It's supposed to get us together, and maybe we procreate and the species survives. But I thought that was love. Forget about the practice and the action of love, which is a real choice. I mean, falling in love's not even a choice. It either happens or it doesn't. It's not a choice. I mean, you ever fall in love with somebody you shouldn't have fallen in love with? That's happened. It wasn't a choice, it just happened. But to love is really a choice that I found, because I have to show up in the action of love, even if I'm not feeling like loving, or if maybe the other person isn't actually acting lovable. It's inconvenient, just like being of service. Just like being of service is inconvenient. My sponsor answers the phone. He's in his workshop at 4:15 Colorado time. For me, it's 6:15. I'm home. It's a Friday. It's Friday night. I've had a week of working and, working with my own sponsees between 4:30 and 7:30, Monday through Friday. Like, I'm tired. I'd rather go take a nap. I know I have at least one man on here that I'm sponsoring, and I love him, but sometimes I'd rather be taking a nap, man. And, I got to get in there and be concerned about another human being, and not in a casual way, but really, I got to pay attention, and I got to try to help somebody, because I live for duty, not happiness today. And my duty to God's will includes working with others. And just, and my sponsor taught me that. And it's like, hey, man, I don't have a dog in the fight in regards to whether that man stays sober or not. It's shot, and Bill talks about that in that letter. And I can't tell you how many times I'll hear inventory from a man that I'm working with regarding one of the guys he sponsors. Like, oh man, he's not this or he's not that. And I'm thinking, well, why are you working with that guy? Anyway, these are all just things that I've learned over many years. It sure seems like many years to me. It's really a blink of an eye that I've been on this path. I don't believe there are any spiritual giants in Alcoholics Anonymous. I just don't. I think we're all spiritual babies, man. And when we cross the river, then we'll be spiritual giants. And in the meantime, we're just doing the best we can to try to put the brakes on self and reach out to God and ask God, maybe, hey, God, how do you want me to live my life? You know, is what I want for me, is that what you want for me? And am I willing to put aside the things that I might think I want, to be still and ask God for some guidance and be open to something different? Love is so transformative, not just God's love for me, but my ability to love another person and show up, and choose to do that, and then have the spiritual muscle to back it out by reaching out to God. It's transformed me over the past couple of years. It really saved me. I can't say enough about it, but it surely wasn't what I was expecting. Just like the spiritual world, the spiritual life, the world of the spirit wasn't what I was expecting. I mean, just listen to the words. We have entered the world of the spirit. Think about what thoughts that might provoke inside of you when you hear those words. And when I read them on the page, and when I would listen to these workshops, it was almost as if, if I enter the world of the spirit and do all this stuff, man, I'm going to rise above alcoholism. And it wasn't the case at all. The more questions I asked, some of the most potent prayers I've ever said, and were, God, please show me what you would have me be, or God, please show me what's getting in my way, or please show me why these pictures of me as a child have this sad look on my face in every single picture that I found. I couldn't figure it out. And I said a potent prayer one day, sitting alone after my marriage had fallen apart. I just started working with my sponsor. And I said that prayer, and I didn't realize how potent that prayer was until all these memories of childhood traumas and stuff started flooding into my mind, and I thought my head was going to pop off. But this is all on the road to emotional sobriety. This stuff was absolutely necessary. I had to be taken apart in order to be put back together and made new. The way a caterpillar needs to be liquefied and destroyed inside that cocoon in order to be made into this beautiful monarch butterfly. And we have to volunteer for that destruction. And the caterpillar, it's just hardwired to do so. It doesn't choose to do it. It just does it because that's how it was programmed. And we have to volunteer for it while we're living our everyday lives. 100 years or more ago, if a man or woman was to make a decision to immerse themselves in spiritual principles and a way of living designed for living the way Alcoholics Anonymous is suggesting and begging us to do, really, we would remove ourselves from society and go live in a monastery somewhere, so that all your physical needs and everyday stuff would be taken care of. You wouldn't have to worry about fixing your own meals or going to work and raising the kids and all. And we have to do all that stuff, have careers and families and relationships, and do all that stuff while we're trying to have a spiritual awakening, a spiritual experience, and have the self that we showed up with completely destroyed in order to be made new. I don't want to be completely destroyed. That's the problem. Because what's going to be left? Am I going to flap in the breeze? Am I going to become some boring version of Scott? Like, I didn't know what made Scott run. I really didn't. And I remember my sponsor, when I first met him, I met him at a retreat in Staten Island, New York. And I remember him asking me, he asked the whole room this question at one point. He said, "Tell me where it hurts." I thought, Lord have mercy. What kind of question is that? who's this guy? Tell me where it hurts. And I mean, I understand it completely today. And how do you answer that question anyway? I mean, if I have a broken arm or cracked rib, yeah, it hurts right here. It hurts over here. But when I'm just completely emotionally shattered inside, it was like, man, where doesn't it hurt? And I'm not even able to really admit it at that point. It's taken me years to admit these things and pull these things out of me. And I get hit with, well, Scott, if you learned easy, you wouldn't have to learn hard. And it's like, yeah, okay. I mean, I agree with it, but I'm trying to learn more easily because I know I haven't arrived. I don't know if I'll ever get to this place where I've arrived. I think, I remember asking, when am I going to break into the clear here? I guess when am I going to be no longer alcoholic? Because I believe I wanted to get drunk on spirituality. I didn't know any of this consciously, but I started to find that out when I was a little disappointed in the reality of God and the reality of living a spiritual life. I was looking for spiritual make-believe, wanted to get drunk on spirituality where nothing really bothered me anymore, or I choose God and now God's going to shower me with a great relationship, plenty of money in my pocket, wonderful opportunity. The doors of opportunity would just get kicked open. And it sounds ridiculous and absurd. Like, how could you even think that? But I mean, I've worked with enough guys over the past 15 years that I know we don't even realize when we're making up this spiritual make-believe world. If the moment I heard the words spiritual awakening, entered the world of the spirit, my mind immediately created this idea about what my life might be like if I choose God. And I couldn't help it. I don't think any of us can. So over the past, few handfuls of years, I've been laying aside a lot of ideas of God that I show up with so that I can experience the reality. To experience the reality of God. And I remember my sponsor saying, you think, Scott, if you let go of your life, man, and turn it over to God, you're going to be like the hole in the donut. You're going to be just nothing. And I thought, I want to say, no, I mean, that's not what it is. That's not it, but it is. But it is. It's like if I turn my sex life over to God, I'm going to be a wet noodle. If I turn my work life over to God, I'm going to be, I don't know, working in a soup kitchen, feeding the homeless for 50 cents an hour. If I turn my AA, you know what I mean? I'm going to, my deal will be in AA. I'll just sponsor 1,000 people or whatever, clean ashtrays. I don't know. But the ideas I had about God, as childish as they were, I suppose they were necessary too, so that I could get to experience the reality of God through making mistakes. The greatest lessons I've learned in my life have been painful. I mean, geez, my wife and I had a horrific motor vehicle accident last Christmas. And I'm thinking, man, like, why did this happen? And it turns out it saved my life, because they gave me some scans and they found a tumor on my kidney. And through another strange series of events, I ended up getting plugged in with the top urologist in the United States that was less than an hour drive from the house here. And he cut that tumor out and I'm cancer free. But if it wasn't for the horrific accident that we were lucky to survive, I would have never known I had it. By the time I had these symptoms, it would have been all over the place, they told me. So it's like maybe I say a potent prayer and the wheels fall off in my life. It's like, okay, the arena for change is my everyday life. Perhaps it's that way. It's been that way for me. Or am I too busy trying to clean up my act visually? I want to look good. I want to sound good. And look good, sound good doesn't get to really recover. That's just the truth. If I'm a look good, sound good guy, I don't get to recover. I could talk about the book. I could pull pages. I could sound like I really am working with that big book and not be doing a stitch of genuine inner work. And nobody in the audience would know it. Honest to God truth. Most of us on here could do that. And that's scary. That's scary. And next thing you know, the wheels fall off in the big way. And it's like, whoa, man, what happened to Scott? What happened to Joe? What happened? You know what I mean? Oh my God, he just spoke at a conference. Are you kidding me? You know what I'm saying? Thomas Merton says we can give many sermons, we can girdle the earth with pilgrimages and all sorts of stuff. We can write books. Not that these things aren't good in themselves, but they can become an escape. They can become an escape from the genuine inner work that is required of me if I want to recover from alcoholism and experience even a taste of what this Bill Wilson was writing about in that letter. 23 years after he wrote the book, he starts writing letters about recovery. And this is like Bill Wilson. They threw him parades when he showed up at AA meetings and stuff. I don't know if I would have been a big fan. I was more of a Dr. Bob guy. But anyway, alcoholism's just dying to whoop my ass at any given moment. My sponsor and I would call it the vulture on the bedpost in the morning. You know, my wife and I are part of a big book study, and there was this young woman there some months back, and she was up there, and her sponsor was there. Her whole home group was there because we have speakers will come on Sunday, and she talked about how when she woke up in the morning, the first thing she felt so much of God's light flowing through her body, and the first thing she thinks of is what visions of God's light she can bring into the world and all this stuff. And I'm sitting there thinking, are you kidding me? I kept my eyes. I just thanked her afterward. Thank you very much for coming. And, yeah. But I'm thinking, Lord have mercy. What am I doing wrong? Alcoholism greets me in the morning, you know? And it's if I have a daily reprieve regarding my drinking, what makes me think I don't only have a daily reprieve regarding my condition, my emotional, spiritual condition, that I don't have to wake up and do everything that I did the day before? What's the book ask us to do? It asks us to reach out to God first thing in the morning, reach out to God all through the day. Reach out to God if I have to put pen to paper during the day or 10th step with somebody just verbally. First thing it says is reach out to God. After I put my finger on some of these behaviors and character defects, ask God to remove. I have no leverage on it. Not just in my 6th and 7th step. I have no leverage on this stuff ever. So it's asking me this God conscious to be so conscious of God that I reach out to him as if he's going to show up, that I know he is, that it becomes my way. That's what the program's asking us to do. All roads lead to step 6 and 7. Everything we do in Alcoholics Anonymous is to get me to the altar, to put my life and everything in it on the altar. Take what you do it. You take it. If you want me to have it back, if it has any usefulness, value, sure. But I got to quit fooling myself about values. The book tells me that, and my everyday life tells me that. All these things that I would try to employ in my everyday life, interacting with you, interacting in relationships, interacting on the job, that stuff lacked value. That's an understatement. But I did it. It's just, like I said, character defect. It's how I did business all my life. So I just polish it up a little bit when I'm in AA. I'm just not drinking. And I wonder why I can't live my life. But everything we're being begged to do here is to get us to put our lives on the altar, to be sacrificed, to live in God's world for his reasons and be changed in his ways. And it's not like a casual relationship that I'm looking for here with God. That's not what the spiritual world demands. It demands that I have an intimate relationship with God, that I have union with God, and that maybe I don't get to live the life I always wanted. Oh, wait a minute. You know, we're moving to Florida next year. You know what I mean? And what if God says, no, you're not moving to Florida. No, you're not sailing that boat down there. Nope, not happening. You're like, well, what do you know what I mean? I thought we were pals, God. It's like, do we really have that sort of commitment that if we could ask God what he would have us live like, and he was going to show up and give an answer, this is how I want you to live, would you really want to ask? Would any one of us really want to ask? God might tell you to go live in a tent. It's out in the Rocky Mountains, live in a tent, plant seeds. I'll make sure you make it through the winter. Then I just want you to be a friendly face for hikers at this trailhead or something. And I'll be like, no, I don't want to do that. But God says, I'll take care of you, and you'll experience more joy than you ever have in your entire life. Would we really be able to pull that off? Just like, do I really have the spiritual stamina? Do I have the spiritual endurance that it takes to really love another person and really stand up and be devoted to duty in God's will instead of happiness? The kind of stamina that it takes for us to get through really difficult times in our lives and walk somebody else through that. Somebody, when it's time to show up and love somebody, when it really counts, not when things are great. Everyone's grateful for a banquet, right? We're all grateful for full plates, but gratitude doesn't count when my plate's full. It counts when my belly's empty. And I'll tell you, this is not what I signed up for, knowingly anyway. I really did. I did sign up for all that. But I think if I'd have really known, man, just how knocked down, drag out this spiritual awakening, and to get to a place where I'm not so attached to my emotions, aren't sparked off so quickly. And I've had some really embarrassing and dangerous things happen to me as the AA guy, 6 years ago or so. I had a thing happen to me and a narcotics cop near my shop in Philly and Kensington, where he was rousting me, checking me out, and then he started abusing his authority. I think I was like the guy, was it Jim, who had a little resentment working for the car place that he once owned. Before he put the whiskey in the milk, would his cop come up to my car and he's looking at me and I'm like, what do you want? Don't you know who I am? Don't you know I'm not down here buying drugs, man? And he starts giving me the business, and then I start giving him the business. And next thing you know, it got ugly. It got ugly really fast. I was lucky to walk away from that. I did walk away from it because they towed my car. But I gave that cop something, man. I've been driving around with an amends letter for like 5 or 6 years for this police officer. And I've stopped police officers and said, and I still have the guy's picture on my phone. Do you know this guy? And they're like, he's a task force guy. We don't know where they're at. Nobody knows where their office is. They're always in different places and all that stuff. And the cops are telling me, oh, you don't have to worry about, don't worry. People flip us off all the time, man. Don't worry about it. And I'm like, nah, man, you don't understand. I'm on a life and death errand. I need to make this right if I can. And I'll be honest, I'm free of it. I'm not carrying the weight. Given the opportunity, I would make my approach to this man just like that, because I am on a life and death errand. However, I've gotten free of it with my willingness to make it right with that police officer. It got me free. But I'll tell you where my pick really struck gold. I got to the bottom. Well, I got into the root cause of my reaction to that man abusing his authority. I mean, when I tell you I went volcanic on this guy, I went bananas. I'm surprised he didn't shoot me, honestly. But I got a really good idea why. By being in the deep end of the pool with a sponsor who's willing to walk into that cave with me. Alcoholics Anonymous is asking me to get in touch with my dark side. Caroline Mace calls it the shadow side. It's not asking us, hey, let's find out how great you are, Scott. It says, let's find out all this stuff that's been destroying your relationships, destroying your life, and eventually you'll extend an invitation to a drink, and then we'll really turn up the volume on the nut stuff. But what's at the root of it? Because I can use inventory to document bad behavior until they pull the grass over my face. But if I start to get down to business and get to the root cause of what makes Scott run, then I don't have to do these things. I don't have to go volcanic on that police officer. I don't have to go volcanic on anybody. I don't have to walk out on my wife. I don't have to blow up my job. I don't have to go I don't have to tell a troublesome client to go get, you know what I mean? I don't have to do that stuff. I don't have to be Mr. Superstar Moonlight, Water Walker and Alcoholics Anonymous. I can show up to a Zoom group. I can show up to a room full of 1,000 people. It matters not to me, but to offer the truth. To offer the truth, not auditioning for the next conference. To just get up and shoot straight and say, listen, man, if you want to get into the deep end of the pool, let's do it. It's hard and it gets messy. The spiritual life is messy business, man. Radical change. I'm talking about absolute transformation. What do you think that's supposed to look like? I mean, parades and throwing flowers at us and, buckets of money, great relationships. We meet our soulmate or something, like the Santa Claus guy. And don't get me wrong, I wouldn't have been as ridiculous to say it just like that, but I realized looking back on it, man, I wanted to get drunk on spirituality. And I thought God was just going to dump buckets of favor on me or something for being a good boy. And what God really wanted to do was help me change and see me change. So when it was time for the wheels to fall off, they fell off. And if we're working with a solid program of recovery, we can get down to the bottom of things. Or like I said, we could just use inventory to document bad behavior for the rest of our lives. And it doesn't have to be that way. What we got? 9:15. All right. So, do we get to recover from the way we live? Absolutely. My name's Scott, and I'm an alcoholic. And I want to thank you guys for giving me the opportunity to share a little bit with you. Maggie said that we leave time for you guys. So I'd love to hear from some of you guys. Thank you so very much.
Oh, thank you, Scott. That was wonderful. So what we do is, if you would like to call on a few people that you'd like to hear from, if you want to kick us off like that. And then if anyone would like to share, you can use the raise your hand function. Or if you have a question, it's a workshop, so you can ask questions. But yeah, Scott, you want to call on a few people? Do you?
I wasn't gonna, but I don't know. Let me call on someone I don't know. How about you, Diane? I don't think we've ever met.
Hi, my name is Diane and I'm an alcoholic. Thank you so much for sharing. I'm trying to get my little, there we go. Thank you for calling on me. I needed this meeting more than anything. And I appreciate everything that you said. The root causes. I feel like I've been in the water lately with those little things you put on your arms, you know, to hold the young one up to keep it from drowning. And I'm thinking, why aren't these things holding me up anymore? What am I not doing? What am I missing? And it spilled over into what I call PMS, you know, physically, mentally, and spiritually. So I've become a seeker, especially in this month. I'm a seeker with that 11th step, and I'll continue on. So your share has certainly given me a lot of hope tonight. And it's not the amount of time. I thought you get all these wonderful things with all these wonderful years. And I don't have those yet at 33 years. And so I am still seeking. And thank you. I appreciate all of you being here. This is my first emotional sobriety meeting at the invitation of my sponsor, who's on here tonight too. Thank you.
Speaking of sponsor, how about Mickey M? And that's the last one I'm going to pick. Then after that, you just throw your hands up.
Thanks for calling on me, Scott. My name's Mickey. I'm an alcoholic. So to watch someone come out of hell and be able to be a gentleman and someone you can count on, this is the pleasure I've had in working with Scott. And it isn't easy to sponsor. It is not easy to sponsor because we're running up against the disease. We think that the person in front of us is who's listening, but it's the disease that's listening. And it's trying to figure out an angle how to take me down in the process of trying to help someone. So there's so many facets to this whole deal. But I couldn't be more proud of Scott. There's just no way I can express it. And I used to tell him, I said, Scott, why is it that you and I have to go in metaphorically in the alley and go nose to nose for you to listen to me? And it's like that has changed so much. And I love you, brother. And thanks again for calling on me.
Thank you, Mickey. So again, if you'd like to share, you can actually just either use the raise hand function, and Kate, thanks, you can unmute.
Hey there. I'm Kate. I'm an alcoholic, and thank you so much, Scott, for sharing your truth. It is something, this path, this journey. I celebrate, my sober date's 9/1/93, so I have 30 coming up, but we just take each day that we have. I'm getting ahead of myself, but these are some of the I only bring up the sobriety date just to say that, I'm in the hardest years I've had in sobriety. Not my sobriety isn't hard. My emotional sobriety is challenging some days, but I'm talking about my life is really hard. My husband's had Parkinson's disease for 25 years, and he had to, we had a great life. We had a medical practice. We had this home I designed and built. And I mean, things were really something years ago. And my sobriety wasn't that great. I was kind of relying, my husband, was kind of my higher power in a way. I mean, I went to meetings and all that, but I'm just saying, I didn't have the, I work so much harder now on my 10th step, 11th step with my sponsor, with my sponsees, rigorously, to stay spiritually fit, because my husband has dementia now. Here he was a brilliant man, and now he can't get dressed in the morning. And he's deteriorated over years. And it's the longest goodbye of my loved one, my partner. It's excruciatingly painful. And at times I feel like I can't talk about it in AA. It's not an AA. People in AA, it's not, but I have to share it because everybody has their challenges. People have cancer. I have a sponsee who was just diagnosed with breast cancer with metastasis. We all have our hard journeys, but it doesn't look like what I thought. This is not how I thought my husband and I were going to be spending our, later years in life. I've been a caregiver for a really long time now, and I am it 24/7. And if I didn't have God, if I didn't have a spiritual practice, I would be Looney Tunes. I would blow my brains out. I'd drink. I mean, I'd run. I was a runner. When things got rough, I used to run. I used to bolt, either with alcohol, drugs, get in my car, bolt. And, I love this man. It's not the man I married. He's not, it's a whole, I'm just caretaking him now. And it's a tough road, but thank God I have AA. I have Zoom meetings because I can't leave them very often. So I have to stay home. We don't have extra money where I can just hire people to come in and take care of them. That's not realistic. So it's me. And yet I have sponsees can come to the house. We read out of the book. We do the deal. They call. I'm there for them. And I just put one foot in front of the other, and it's a journey, I'll tell you what. But if I didn't have God, if I didn't have this program, if I didn't have my sponsor and my sponsees and my people, my women friends and my support, I wouldn't be able to do it. And with that, I pass. I just wanted to share. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Kate. Deanna, would you like to unmute?
Sure, thank you. I'm Deanna, I'm alcoholic. Thank you for sharing. When you were talking, I kept thinking about how when I first came into recovery back in '95, I spent a lot of time in the big book and a lot of time reading the stories and listening to speaker meetings, and everyone would talk about, what it was like, what happened, and what it's like now. And it always ended with what it's like now is wonderful. And I got the house and I got the car and I got the job and, I got the relationship and everything's wonderful. And so as I grew in my sobriety and I started to get things back and I started to get the car and the job and the house and the relationship. And then when things didn't go the way when things started to not be perfect, I thought I was doing something wrong. I thought that I wasn't, I was doing something wrong in my spiritual life if I had a bad day, or if I was depressed, or if I was angry about something. And so I just kept thinking, oh, I got to fix this. I got to fix this. There's something wrong with me. There's something wrong with me. Because if I was doing everything right, then I would get what everybody else seemed to be getting. And I finally found a sponsor who explained to me that was not how this all works, and that this is a program that, I go to bed sober, I wake up alcoholic. Every single day is a new day where I have to practice these principles and bring these things into my life. And, that God's not the dope man, it really hit home for me that God, for 8 years, I was running on like a hamster on a wheel, trying to do it all right, and earn my serenity. And when I finally, you know, got to the truth of it, and that I'm an alcoholic, that life happens, life is life, and God isn't up there, doling out just, the good things to the people who earn them, but to, that my relationship with God is what raises me above those things. It's that relationship with God that gives me the separation between the third dimension and the fourth dimension. When I can live in the fourth dimension and I am at peace, regardless of what's going on in the third dimension. And things are gonna go on, people are gonna die, jobs are gonna suck. And but I don't have to let that change me and cause me to be miserable. I can rise above it and um, get the lesson from it. So thank you for sharing.
Thank you, Deanna. Sarah B.
Hey everyone, I'm Sarah, I'm an alcoholic. Scott, thank you for sharing. And I haven't been on this meeting in a long time, so it feels so good to see so many familiar faces. You touched on a couple things that really resonated with me. Like first, when you were talking about like being a performer in AA, that's something that me and my sponsor have been talking about lately, because like I've noticed I was sober for 5 years, and then I went out and drank again. And now I've been sober since November 3rd, 2020. And coming back, I just have kind of a whole new perspective of this stuff. And my main goal is to stay. Like I need to stay here. Okay. It's like, I don't want to become a spiritual giant. I don't think that's our path. I think that we're sick people that are trying to grow along spiritual lines, and that's the best it's going to get. Right. But I notice, in the rooms, people are like, oh my gosh, I'm sponsoring 5 women, and oh, I'm sponsoring 10. How many are you sponsoring? And there seems to be this like competition. And that's a kind of performative AA that for me, I can't get involved in that stuff, because for me, working with others and being here is about having an experience with God. And I can't have that if I'm trying to like show off and be in competition with everybody else, because it just takes me off the mark completely. And then I really appreciated what you shared about 4th step. And I just want to share about an experience I had recently with a 4th step that was just so awesome. And it came after reading some Carl Jung with my sponsor and really getting into these ideas of like an archetype, how we have these archetypes that each have a light attribute and shadow attributes. And then on top of that, I've been reading literature from another program called Adult Children of Alcoholics, because I am an adult child of an alcoholic. So I go into this 4th step because there was a resentment that was eating my lunch. And every time I saw or heard this person, I felt like I was going to faint. I would have this massive internal reaction and just kind of like act like a bratty child. And what was so unique about this 4th step, after like learning what I learned, was I was able to go in it and just kind of hit the nail on the head almost immediate. Well, I shouldn't say almost immediately. Like first I wrote it out, and, I just have to be careful, because I can write a 4th step from my mind intellectually and not bring God in. And I kind of did that at first without realizing, and something wasn't sitting right. Like I didn't want to bring it to the altar, like you said. I didn't want to bring it to my sponsor. And then, through kind of some prayer meditation, it finally came to me, and I was able to nail, when I grew up, there was a lot of shame. Like I was shamed a lot as a child, and my parents didn't mean to, it's the disease of family dysfunction is passed along. So my dad was like a raging alcoholic, but his dad was an alcoholic, and it was passed on. So I would be shamed, which is a form of abandonment. And it made me feel really alone and unlovable at a very deep level. And I've carried this my whole life. And where it relates to emotional sobriety is it kind of inadvertently caused me to always seek external things to feel loved, to feel validated, like always seeking on the outside, right? I was able to, the archetype that I identified with in this case was the orphan child. And the light attributes of an orphan child is that I have this like great independence and I've survival skills, I can go it alone. But there are dark attributes to that too, you know. The dark attributes to the orphan child is that I will create inappropriate dependencies. Like I'll create inappropriate families, like maybe like putting hooks in friends, putting hooks in people that are inappropriate, right? And I'm doing it because I need something from them to feel okay. And then what was so cool about it is like being able to move into the sixth step and see my defects of character and actually see where they were born in my childhood. And then Carl Jung advocates, you know, I'm not trying to like get rid of the dark. It's not bad, right? It's like, I need to integrate these two. I need to really assimilate them in my psyche somehow and really like honor them both. And what was so cool about it is, you know, I just lucked out, like immediately was just, I got to kind of master this resentment because I don't feel that anger at this person. I could look at them with compassion because I'm just so grateful for the awakening that came with that, you know, it was just such a revolutionary inventory for me. And I'm so grateful. And yeah, you just reminded me of that. So thank you.
Thanks so much, Sarah. It's great to see you. Erin T, would you like to share with us tonight?
Oh, thank you, Scott. What a great share. I really appreciate it. Yeah, I wake up alcoholic every morning and ask God to direct my thinking. So I'm struggling right now. I liked your story about 6 years ago. The situation with the cop and how you lost your cool and trying to ferret out and do the digging as to where's the fear, what was the cause of this reaction that you had. And my struggle right now is with being a mom. I'm pretty new and I'm newly sponsored and working the steps again. So in working columns 6 and 7, what would God have me be and what would God have me do? I am just so puzzled and at a loss with being a mom. And so this is where I really need the guidance and help of my sponsor to help me to identify what would God have me be and what would God have me do. There's such a gray area for me. And so don't want to dive too deeply into the story with that, but just saying that your share helped me to want to work harder, to try and examine when these things come up, how can I connect this with the mother and the woman that God would have me to be. So I'll close with that. Thanks for calling on me.
Thanks, Erin. Love to hear from Tom O.
Hi, everyone. Wow. Didn't expect to be called on. I was making a note when you called on me in my notes, this idea of a potent prayer, because I'm very careful what I pray for. And the sense there is I might just get what it is I'm asking for. And your comment about the vulture on the bedpost reminds me of my close friend, Victor, who's no longer with us, but he always referred to that. Waking up in the morning and that vulture sitting there waiting for him to wake up. And then this idea of reaching out to God. Your story about blowing up with the cop is my story. And I don't know, I was probably 7 years sober and pulled up to the stop sign and I don't know, maybe rolled through the stop sign. And then next thing I know, I had a police car behind me with his lights on and it like frightened me. And I pulled over and in that sense of fear, being frightened by the police car, I jumped out of the car and I confronted the police officer, and how he didn't spray me with I don't know, whatever it is they spray you with, or tase me. How I escaped either of those remedies for my behavior, I don't know, because I confronted him, right in his face, yelling at him, and we had this kind of a short argument because he was a police officer, and I think he was ready to, handcuff me and take me to the police station, but I had to find that guy later on after, after he wrote me the ticket and let me go. And I had, I had to go and find him like you did, or at least were willing to do, right? The willingness is the key. So for me, it's always, I have to go to God. I have to ask God for the willingness, because it's not me. My character wouldn't ever admit being wrong. And I had to find that police officer, and I did, and I had to apologize to him, which I did, and for my actions. And I never got to why I reacted that way, but it's been a pattern in my entire life. And Scott, I don't mean to call you out on this, but you had me on the edge of my seat, because I thought you were going to tell us why you reacted that way. And if you did, and I missed it, I'm sorry, because I thought you were going to make a revelation that I could apply to my life, because I'm still looking for the answer as to why I do act out that way. And that's been a pattern in my life, in all of my life's, pursuits, in the workplace, particularly. And on the field of athletics, I was noted for confronting referees in the, during the game when they had the gall to make a judgment or a call that I disagreed with. Boy, I tell you, I used to have some great confrontations with referees. So I don't know, fear would be too easy of an answer, and I don't know what the answer is. I still don't. I talk about it all the time. I have done work around it, but it's an interesting aspect of my character. So that's all I have. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks so much, Tom.
Maggie,
Yeah,
can I answer Tom's question?
yes, please.
I couldn't remember if I had gotten, if I had explained what I discovered. As a boy, as a very young boy, I was abused terribly by people in positions of power. And growing up, I sought power out in the street and found it. So that was never going to happen again, but I don't like bullies. And I think the reaction that cop got that day was not from Scott today. It was from Scott, that little boy that was being abused by somebody in a position of power. And the truth is, I'm not that little boy anymore. And it didn't warrant that kind of reaction. But I'll tell you, when I went over the event horizon, it's like the black hole. When I go over the event horizon, there's no going back. I felt that moment where I could have reached out to God and said, all right, the right thought or action. Certainly wouldn't have been to do what I did. But I let that slip. I let that go. I went over the edge, and that was it. But I discovered that when I get that feeling like somebody's trying to abuse me, I need to reach out for God immediately. And I've been in situations where I've done that. I was on a job where an architect was basically telling me I was burnt and I wasn't going to get paid for this, and this. And I wanted to bounce this guy off every wall in the room. And I reached out to God, and he helped me. And I dealt with it in a professional way. And life's good. But yeah, I discovered Another instance happened that very week where a guy hit my Cadillac and took off through the neighborhood, and I chased him. And I chased him for miles, and I caught him. And I was so happy, and it was a real nut story. But anyway, I was so happy with myself because I called my sponsor. I'm like, yeah, I caught the guy and I didn't hurt him and all this stuff. And he goes, that's great, Scott. What if he'd have pulled out a gun? And I thought, oh, see, and now somebody tried to hurt me and get away with it. He tried to hit my car and get away. I had his license. I could have just called the cops and let them deal with it. But no, I had to deal with it. You know what I mean? And it's like, I'm 54 years old, man. I don't need this stuff to continue cropping up in my life without a response. Anyway, a little long-winded, but
Thanks. I do have a question for you, Scott, about whatever, like, whatever God is. You do use the word God freely in your journey, especially in the times where the wheels fall off or where it feels like everything's just like coming apart, like in that cocoon, like you were talking about, that chrysalis, you know, where life kind of just disintegrates. Have you ever struggled with like having a real connection with the higher power, or has it shifted for you? What has that been like?
it has shifted. It's gotten a lot deeper. Like I know there's a God, and I know that everything's going to play out according to God's will. But I'll tell you, I don't always feel connected. I don't. There's times where like I can't find a thread of connection, it seems. But I know that God's still there. You know what I mean? It's like if I try not to look for how I feel. My feelings have deceived me so much in my life. So sometimes it just knowing that God is there, and I'm really hurting right now, and this is tough and it sucks. That's where I got to reach down and pull out some spiritual stamina out of my account. You know, and like I said earlier, you know, something just occurred to me one day was to live for duty, not happiness. And it sounds like, man, that sucks. But you know, I equate happiness with pleasure. So let me start living for happiness, and you'll really see the wheels will fall off. And how often has pleasure robbed me of joy? But yeah, to answer your question, yeah, there's times I don't feel all that connected, and that doesn't mean I'm not. It just means I'm looking for something with my senses. If that helps at all, I don't know.
Yeah, very much. Well, thank you. And I just want to say how grateful I am that you came tonight and shared with us. It was wonderful to see you and to hear you. We're going to close the meeting early tonight so that we can have a wrap up group conscience that we started last week. And so what we're going to do now is we'll close the meeting in the way that we normally do. First of all, if you want to be a part of the group conscience, we're just talking about like going forward with this meeting, what that's going to look like and so on. Please stay on afterwards. But we'll just take a moment and go inside and say whatever type of prayer we want to say in our own, you know, like in our own hearts, and then come back and we'll thank the speaker. Thanks again, Scott. It's just beautiful. to
Scott.
Have you here.
Great share, man.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you, Scott.
To everybody,
Thanks,
to
Scott.
everyone,
It's great to hear you.
to everyone
you,
that
Scott.
messaged me,
Excellent meeting.
I can't, I'm unable to work this computer. It's my wife's computer, so I can't, I've been trying to message everybody back and I can't.
Yeah. Well, it really hurt my feelings, Scott.
I was thinking,
Yeah.